welcome back. Today we are talking with Eric Palicki. He has a new series from AHOY Comics called Blacksmith. And if you've seen any of the interviews I've done, then I really love the AHOY Comics and the talked to many of the creators and about the books they put out. And when I saw this one, the concept struck me as a really cool concept. So it was nice that Eric was willing to come on and be interviewed. So I'll stop talking about it and let me bring him in and we'll get talking to him. Hey, Eric, how's it going?
It's going well. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How's the weather where you are?
It's a little cloudy and overcast here in Seattle, but after a couple of months of heat, it's a nice change.
Yep, same here over here on the East Coast, because it's hot, steamy, but it's, rather nice today. So
sure.
So one of the questions I like to ask right off the bat is if you remember the first comic book that maybe you read, or the one that kind of caught your interest and made you want to read more.
Sure. I actually remember I was in 6th grade. I was at a friend's house, and he had this beat up, rolled spine, cover almost falling off copy of Wolverine 37, which was a Larry Hama, Mark Silvestri issue, Wolverine versus Lady Deathstrike, traveling through time, mostly set in the time between World War I and World War II. It was just Lady Deathstrike is this absolutely over-the-top, ridiculous villain, and it was the perfect character for Mark Silvestri to draw. And I just picked it up because it was laying on the floor of my friend's bedroom, and I sat down and I read it cover to cover, and I was mesmerized. And that's all she wrote. Like, from there on, my path was set. Like, I was going to be doing this for life.
So, after you read that comic book, did you stick with the X-Men or kind of branch out?
I was an X-Men kid. Yeah, I was. That was the. Silvestri was on Wolverine. Whilce Portacio and Jim Lee were doing the X books. It was just before I started hardcore into comics, just before the launch of X-Men #1, and then I followed all of those same creators over to Image when they jumped ship from Marvel. And so, yeah, I mean, I got into comics at just a very interesting time in the industry. There was a lot of tumult, and and then I got out right at the right time, right? Like, I was going into high school about the time of the Clone Saga, where Marvel kind of had its implosion, and then I found my way back in my 20s. Like a lot of other people of that age, I was drawn to the idea of Kevin Smith writing Daredevil. And then from there, I picked up Ultimate Spider-Man and, got to see all of the really cool stuff that Joe Quesada kind of shepherded into existence when he took over as editor-in-chief at Marvel.
And so when was the first time that you actually tried writing your own, comic?
I probably tried badly in high school. I had a friend. I still have a friend, and he's a very talented artist. And we sat down in high school and decided that this was something we could do, and we couldn't. And then I ended up going to school and got a degree in writing in English. And I thought I was going to be a short story writer. I thought I was going to be Ray Bradbury. And prose fiction is not something I have the patience for. But I was browsing at Barnes & Noble, and there was a copy of The Authority, the first volume of The Authority by Brian Hitch and Warren Ellis at Barnes & Noble, and they reprinted a script. They reprinted the first issue script in the back of the trade paperback. And I looked at the script and I said, "Oh, I can do this. This is easy." And from there, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and I still use that script format for my own scripts to this day.
And so is let's talk about Blacksmith now. Can you
Sure.
kind of give us the kind of a summary about what it's about and how, what inspired you to write it?
Sure. Blacksmith is the story of Los Angeles-based private investigator Janie Jones Strummer Mercado. She goes by Strummer to her friends. And she is this once-in-a-lifetime case drops in her lap. But that case forces her to sort of explore the secret supernatural underground of Los Angeles, which is a world that she was previously a part of but had stepped away from. So in order to solve this case, she has to revisit a lot of trauma and a lot of ghosts from her past that she would rather stayed buried.
And so is this the first comic that you've written, or have you written anything else, or just
I've been making comics independently for close to a decade now. Okay. And previous to that, I have done work for Marvel Comics, Darby Pop Productions, Black Mask Studios. Wendell Cavalcanti and I, my collaborator on Blacksmith, we previously just wrapped a mini series at Scout Comics called Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists. Okay, yeah. So most of the work that I have done sort of is a marriage of the sort of supernatural dark fantasy sensibilities that I really enjoy with other genres that I really wanted to explore. Fake Empire, which I did with Darby Pop, is a murder mystery, but it's two sisters trying to figure out who killed the third sister, who happened to be the Tooth Fairy. No Angel, which I co-wrote with my sister and which was published by Black Mask, is it's an action thriller about a woman who may or may not be descended from angels. Mm-hmm. And Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists is a modern set, kind of H.P. Lovecraft meets Sergio Leone Western that takes place out here in the rural Pacific Northwest.
Oh, nice. So how did you get hooked up with AHOY Comics?
Because I did No Angel at Black Mask, I became acquainted with Sarah Litt, who she had edited the series at Black Mask, which was called Black. So we were friends, and she took a job as an editor at AHOY and reached out to me if I had any pitches. And I sent her 2 or 3, and this is the one that she really was attached to. Blacksmith was the one that she really fell in love with. And thank goodness, because 1, I really loved putting this story together. And 2, Sarah being the editor, I think made the book so much better by her involvement with it.
And so you were saying that you'd worked with the artist Wendell I'm going to mess up his name.
Cavalcanti.
Yeah, before. But I enjoy. I mean, looking at the book, well, the covers, because it is a black and white book, which is the perfect tone for the series. I love the colors in the cover for the book. How did you meet the? Did you know? Have you worked with the cover artist previous also?
Yes. So Liana is, first of all, Liana is the sweetest and kindest human in all of comicdom. But she and I had collaborated on a short story for a horror anthology that I actually curated and edited for A Wave Blue World called Deadbeats. We had done a 6-page story together for that. That said, her involvement in this book on Blacksmith as a cover artist was, again, kind of the brainchild of Sarah, who brought Liana in for the covers. And the covers are great. They're these throwback, it's these great, like, Pulp Fiction 50s, 60s paperback style covers, but with the same like neon color palette that Liana is very well known for.
You're right, and that's what kind of grabbed me at first was just the cover is stunning. So is this an ongoing series, or is it like going to run like many of the other Ahoy books where they kind of run in seasons?
So the first story arc is 5 issues. You know, sales and interest in the book will dictate whether we can do a second volume. I certainly have stories for these characters beyond the initial five issues, but the 5-issue series is going to give you a complete story with closure and everything. And hopefully we can come back for a season 2, because I really love writing not just Strummer, but her partner, Ben, who happens to be half djinn, and then some of the other supernatural characters that work their way into the story. I'm really excited for people to check out issue 2 because we kind of go over the top with it, starting in issue 2.
Now, issue 1 came out, let's see, it was a week or so ago, am I right?
Yeah, it was out on July 7th.
Okay. I don't know, the days just tend to blur together anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, next month, issue 2 will come out?
Yes, it'll be a monthly series. The whole series is wrapped, so we're going to be able to maintain that schedule all the way through. And then hopefully an eventual trade paperback either in December or after the first of the year.
Nice. And is there? I'm just trying to phrase the question correctly. Oh, great! I lost the question. So you mentioned. Is there any one character that you enjoy writing more than any of the others, or is there one that you feel more, closer to, or kind of represents you as a person?
I think that both of these characters contain elements of myself. I think that's probably true of every character that every writer writes, right? Like we try to find some touchstone, some point of familiarity, and that's how we get into the character's mindset. So there are elements of myself in both Strummer and in Ben, and then as well as in some of the antagonists that we'll meet throughout the series. I should say that it's one of those things that it was a happy accident, because I had anticipated it people coming to this particular aspect of Strummer as a surprise when they read the book, but she is a werewolf. And that opened up a lot of possibilities in the storytelling. But, that was spoiled in the solicits. And so I think that works out better. I think people, a werewolf, private detective. So it's sort of a marriage of that noir sensibility, something like the Maltese Falcon, with kind of that quippy, snarky, supernatural, but not necessarily horror sensibility of something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer is really the tone of the book.
So, are there any any other characters? Let's any universe that you would like to take a stab at writing in in the future?
Well, sure. I mean, I'm not going to hang up the phone if Marvel or DC call me. I was able to do one 16-page story once at Marvel, and that was, that's something you can never take away from me, is that I was a Marvel writer, and I got to write Kitty Pryde, who is my all-time favorite character, being an X-Men kid. I've always just loved the X-Men, and Kitty Pryde is my absolute favorite character. And in the story I got to write, she teams up with Gamora to have this sort of cool off-world space adventure. This was during the time when Kitty was part of the Guardians of the Galaxy during Brian Michael Bendis's run, which was again wonderful, because I don't know that I would have been able to write that character that I adore so much if not for the fact that Bendis had put her in the Guardians of the Galaxy of all places.
Now, are there any DC characters that you follow? Are you more of a Marvel guy, or?
So as I grew up and became a more mature reader. I've started to follow creators much more than I follow individual characters. And in that regard, I think we're sort of in a golden age of comics. Certain creators are just knocking it out of the park. Al Ewing, Tom Taylor, Tom King, Matthew Rosenberg, Kelly Thompson, Vita Ayala, like anything that any of those creators do, I will read them. If they want to publish their grocery lists, I'll be there on Wednesday to buy a copy.
And sorry, along that line, are there what writers, be it comic book or even like literature, have influenced your style, the way you write?
Yeah, I think my big influences are from a literature side. I was a big fan of those pulpy short stories from the golden age of science fiction. Ray Bradbury, Theodore Sturgeon, Harlan Ellison, all of that stuff I devoured, as well as, like I said, I studied English in school, so I was exposed to a lot of writers that I might not otherwise have read too much of. Hemingway, Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, William Faulkner.
Okay. And completely understandable. I know can sometimes be a difficult question to answer because
the other thing is that and this is always a hard question to answer because there are a lot of comics creators that I learned a lot from who have turned out to be somewhat problematic white men. And, it's hard to come on to an interview situation like this and say that creators like Joss Whedon and Warren Ellis have really been foundational as writers, just in terms of their writing, have been very influential in how I write stories. I hope that they're not influential in any way in how I am as a person, but I don't think that it's fair to disregard. It's not fair, and it's also, I think, disingenuous to disregard the influence they've had on me as a writer and as a creative person.
I understand, and I hope I didn't put you on the spot there.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's an absolutely fair question, and I just want to provide an honest answer. I also, a lot of other writers have since, filled that void since I've more or less stopped following those creators like Matt Fraction, Mark Waid, other Ed Brubaker, other amazing writers whose work I hang on to and read and study to become a better creator myself.
Completely understandable, and I can see how you have to. I don't know if this is correct because I'm not very good with words, but have to kind of separate the personal lives and what they do over there with the influence that they've had on you as a creator.
Sure, and it's I think that's a good way to put it. I think there's a little bit more nuance in that. It's not about separating the art from the artist. I think you need to acknowledge these controversies and these problematic elements of their of what's going on. But yes, I can't say that hey, I did not devour everything that some of these creators wrote or directed for 20 years and can't honestly say and I have to be honest and say of course that is an influence on the work that I'm producing now.
Well, let's get back to talking about comics and
yes,
so
absolutely.
How do you feel that, or do you feel that you've grown as a writer, with the stuff that you've done before Blacksmith until excuse me, How have you grown as a writer?
Sure. I think that I learn something new in every work that I do, and I hope. I think that Blacksmith is the most complex story that I've ever written. You know, it's a mystery. It's a noir sort of tale, and it's a weird mix of genres, and trying to maintain that juggling act for 5 issues, forced me to stretch my brain a little bit and write a little bit differently than I have in the past. And I hope that those things I learned with Blacksmith carry over to the next project, whatever it may be, and that I'm able to, continue learning and growing. And, hopefully the latest thing that I do is always the best thing I'm doing.
So I know that, conventions are kind of starting back up. Are you planning on making any appearances, or kind of just taking a wait and see kind of approach to things?
I have an artist alley table at New York Comic Con, and I am excited. I'm really excited to get back on the road. And one of the big themes, of Blacksmith is about these characters who are kind of outcasts, who kind of exist in 2 worlds, finding their people, finding where they belong. And for me, it is a giant metaphor for the comics industry. And like, to be back among my people is something that I'm really excited to do. So yeah, I will be at New York Comic Con 100%.
Well, if things play out in a way, then I have my press pass to be there, and I'll definitely have to come by and say hi.
Yeah, please do. I look forward to it.
So is there anything else you'd like to mention about the series that maybe we didn't cover?
So I think, we talked about, the theme. We talked about it's a 5-issue miniseries. We talked about, the kind of genre influences that it has. I'm looking forward to people checking it out. It seems to be doing very well out in the, in the world since the first issue's out. The reviews have been overwhelmingly positive, and I just hope people will stick with it for 5 issues. We've got so many surprises in store, and I'm just really excited about people to. I'm excited for people to check it out.
And people should definitely check it out. The first issue was awesome, and I'm anxiously anticipating the second issue.
Yeah, I hope they love it. Yeah.
So before we sign off, how about just kind of give a summary of the book, where people can find it, and where if anywhere they can follow you on, like, say, social media.
Sure. I am at Eric Palicki, first name, last name, both on Instagram and Twitter, which is where most of my internet presence is. I also maintain a website very poorly at ericpalicki.com. Blacksmith is a supernatural noir mystery tale about a woman who is forced to confront her own past in the course of solving a case that will define her future. There's all kinds of cool monsters, and I hope people will check it out. I do also want to take a moment to plug, I am currently running a Kickstarter for an unrelated project.
Okay, plug it.
Sure. It is. It's called Manticore. It is going to be a graphic novella, 48 pages, printed in an oversized European album-style hardcover, full color, illustrated by Christopher Peterson, and colored by DJ Chavis. I'm really excited. The Kickstarter's ongoing. If you follow me on Twitter, I probably will mostly be talking about that in Blacksmith for the next month. But yeah, I hope people will check that book out too.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the Kickstarter? Because through the magic of the internet, I just brought it up.
Sure. Manticore, as I said, it's a 48-page story in a 56-page hardcover edition. It's the story of a directionless 20-something-year-old who inherits her grandmother's pet monster. And of course, she lives in a world where she didn't know monsters existed. And so this sudden inheritance throws her into a broader, again, supernatural mystery of trying to figure out not only how her grandmother died, but also how her grandmother lived. Okay.
And who can you, a little bit about the book? Who are you working with?
Sure. It's, our book is illustrated by Christopher Peterson, colored by DJ Chavis. It's going to be lettered by Matt Kreutzer. It's going to open up a sort of larger universe, I hope, if the book is well received, but it's a standalone story. It's pretty exciting to see the response so far. The rewards include, of course, the book, both as a hardcover and a digital edition. We have some really cool book plates, 2 different book plates you can choose from. One is going to be printed a little bit smaller in a playing card size, and it is inspired by Magic the Gathering, and the art on that book plate was by Matt Harding. And then the other book plate, which will be a little bit larger in a traditional book plate size, is illustrated by Jason Copeland of Kill All Monsters and Daredevil fame. Both of those are very limited, and the book itself, the design and the concept of doing a hardcover, a premium hardcover, is actually inspired by that Wolverine issue that I mentioned at the top of the show. In that, I read that Wolverine issue at my friend's house until, like I said, the spine rolled and the cover fell off the staples. And that experience was seminal for me. So what I wanted to do was to create something that would give people that same experience, but would be a little bit more permanent, would be a little bit sturdier, so that, hopefully it's something that will sit on a coffee table or on a bookshelf and be durable. Whereas, comics of my youth got rolled up and stuffed in a back pocket before we jumped on our bikes to ride to the corner store. So that was definitely like one of the big, strong inspirations for the format of the book we're doing.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to definitely have to check that one out and give it a look.
Cool. I appreciate you letting me plug it on your show. I'm here to talk about Blacksmith, and of course, very excited about the response that book's getting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, both projects, seem to be excellent, and definitely people should check out both. And anytime you have any other Kickstarters that you'd like to talk about, then I'd love to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to come back. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me this morning.
And we've already got past the hard and difficult, uncomfortable questions, so we can talk a little bit more about fun stuff next time.
I really want to reiterate, it was not uncomfortable. It was just you want to just tread lightly when you talk about the events of the past several years in comics. You just want to make sure you have to be honest, but you also want to reflect on what that means.
True. And Blacksmith is available at comic book stores. If not, they can order it, or you can probably go online and find it through AHOY Comics or however other people order comic books these days. I'm sure it's on Comixology and stuff like that.
Yes, comics were delayed one day. I have this tradition, is whenever I have a new series come out, I go and try to buy the issue on the first day. And comics were delayed one day, arriving in Seattle because of it was the Wednesday after the 4th of July holiday, and shipping was just delayed in the whole city. So comics arrived on Thursday. So I ended up purchasing my book on Comixology on Wednesday just to fulfill that promise to myself.
Very
but
cool.
That said, I always, encourage people to, if they can, if they're able, to support their local shops first.
Yep, I totally agree, because they're the lifeline of our hobby, obsession, call it what you will. All right, well, thank you very much for taking the time today. I'm glad we got to talk about both Blacksmith and your Kickstarter. And who knows, maybe if I make it to New York Comic Con, then we'll get to meet in person. If not, I'm sure I'll see you around sometime, in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that we can break bread in New York.
And again, anytime you have any other projects you'd like to talk about, you're more than welcome to come back.
Okay, I would be happy to.
All right, well, thank you, and stay safe and stay healthy.
You too. Thank you.
All right, bye.